We switch gears now as we speak on a different issue entirely. I'm talking about the Nigerian Senate. The Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, has filed an appeal, a notice of appeal, to counter a federal high court ruling that directed the recall of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who has been on a 6-month suspension. According to the federal high court in Abuja, they ruled that suspension was actually excessive and lacked legal jurisdiction. But Senate President Akpabio, Godswill Akpabio, and his legal team have decided to appeal that ruling, saying that the judge and the court actually lacks the jurisdiction to look into such a matter. Akpabio's legal team is contesting the High Court's jurisdiction, insisting the matter concerning the internal affairs of the National Assembly and falls outside judicial purview as provided under Section 251 of the 1999 Constitution. And of course, according to the Senate President, issues pertaining to suspension, words spoken during plenary and Senate resolutions are safeguarded under the Legislative House's Powers and Privileges Act and cannot be subjected to judicial interference. That's coming from the Senate President, saying the court actually lacked jurisdiction to look into that matter. Recall that Federal High Court Judge Justice Binta Nyako on July 4 had actually given a ruling directing the recall, rather, of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. But the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, thinks otherwise, and he has decided to appeal that ruling. Joining us on this conversation once again this morning is Mr. Samuel Atiku. Thank you, Mr. Atiku, for staying with us.
Thank you again for having me on the program. Yes.
All right. Looking at the drama playing out at the Nigerian Senate, what exactly do you think is going on here? Has this become a personal vendetta between the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan? Or is there something we are missing? Does it run deeper than this? Why else should we be having this kind of drama at this time? There are more important issues in the nation we should be treating. We just talked about the healthcare sector, which has not been fixed, but now the Senate is currently has gotten itself entangled with this suspension issue, trying to, throw in banters and court suits, allegations and counter-allegations. Is this what we should be dealing with at the National Assembly, the Senate to be precise, at this time, as a nation?
I mean, the most painful part of this is that, number one, they are using the time, just like you said, and they will be committing the resources of Nigeria. Remember, the taxpayers' money and the money that they got from the poor to actually push ahead with this ridiculous lawsuit itself. I think that within the principle of democracy itself, the country is divided into different constituencies. And within those constituencies themselves, people are elected. Of course, people could question whether elections were legitimately conducted, whether it's fair and free. But regardless of all those things, each of those constituencies, someone is representing them. Now, for other representatives to decide unitarily, because of an allegation, that a section of Nigeria needs no representation in the Senate, and then push the person away because an allegation was laid, rather than do thorough investigation and draw conclusion, some people, group of people just decide, oh, these are friends, A, B, C, D, and then they push someone out. And then the court has said, no, what you have done is rubbish. You continue to push in that direction. I think, again, it shows where the thinking is. And that's a big question we need to ask ourselves. The people, the working poor, the have-nots, the vulnerable, the sick, are not even at the heart of our public policy discourse. That's the painful truth itself. The issue here is something that a whole lot of people, I'll call it ladies, women, even men, actually encounter in their workplace every day, in the universities, If you pick up the news, you open the newspaper, or you go and have a conversation with someone in universities, people encounter such. It's not new. It's something that it's within our society. It's an abnormal to think of it like that, but whether we like it or not, it's a reality. And for a Senate to have actually, rather than use the opportunity that presented itself to address these issues and begin to pull in policies that protects the vulnerable in our society, we have decided to even punish them for that. Now, just imagine what a little girl that's actually encountering something similar, right? What do you think our abuser will be telling her today? They will say, oh, look at the Senate president. Even if, no matter how powerful you are, even if people elect you, if you mess up with us, we will deal with you. So a court had come up and said, what you have done is wrong. But rather than them aligning, they are trying to double down on their deeds itself. It is painful, it's an insult, and I think people need to actually call the Senate president and his friends. I'll call them friends because I don't see them as senators. The word senator encompasses a whole lot of, carries a lot of weight itself. For you to be seen as a senator, you're a representative of the people, and that's where it drains from. If you look at the Roman Empire, what it represents itself, there are people that should be independent in the way they think. They should be objective in how they think. For them to now be laughing and making meme out of a court system that has said what you have done is wrong, and using the resources of the states, the resources that should have been spent to fix our health system, to help that uneducated person get education, to actually help that vulnerable adult that is facing some medical condition, also maybe travel abroad to get it if we don't have expertise here. You've decided to divert that resources to begin to fight a useless case that means nothing to anyone. I mean, it's disappointing to say the least.
All right, disappointing to say the least. Now, proving further, or this matter constitutionally, the plaintiff has a right to sue, the defendant has a right, to counsel and to lay, in this case, Natasha Akpoti, to lay her case. The court adjudicated on the matter, and they said, it was quite excessive, that 6-month suspension, and the people that Senator Natasha Akpoti is representing should not be denied fair representation. So the Senate should rescind their decision, and recall the suspended senator from Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. And now it seems the House is not having that, and the Senate president has sued to appeal that decision. Now, many Nigerians are seeing that we've had too much drama, just like you said, my colleague asked Daniel, and all of those things. We have pressing needs. You said it yourself for us. Now, the substance, it stemmed from the place of Senator Natasha saying she has been harassed, she has been unjustifiably denied, her voice in the Senate because of sexual harassment allegation that she made against the person of Senator Akpabio. Now, these were two jolly good fellows at some point. In fact, she said both families were friends. The Senate president and the wife, she herself and her husband and all of those things, but then some sexual advances were made at her and she refused, and that's why she has not been favorably treated at the National Assembly and all of those things. Now, the substance of that matter is yet to be, to be adjudicated upon, and we are yet to see the last of that. But the issue of she being at the Senate representing our people is one the court has spoken over, and the Senate president is, appealing that decision. Now, morally speaking, I'm asking this because you are a researcher, but much more an impact evaluator. Looking at it from that angle, what does this connote? Is it not sounding too petty now? Like, okay, must we have a winner and a loser, a victor and a vanquished in this kind of situation? Can everybody just move on? And why? We will not know, even if it's constitutionally guaranteed, that a Senate president can appeal. But to what end? That's my question.
Yeah, I think you, again, it goes beyond even the politicians, I'll call it the protected status. I think let's start from, let's go down a little bit and look at the vulnerable people. I mentioned that one of the biggest challenge we have is the problem of sextortion in the country, where people actually begin to extort people. How will I call it? Sextortion is more like you have, I'll call it, you have sexual abuse materials of someone, and then you continue to extort the person consistently because you are using that like a blackmail means. I mean, you're using that to blackmail. It's one of the biggest problems in the world today. If you look at the lived experience of people that have been caught in that web, what they use as tool to actually keep their mouth shut is what Akpabio is doing today. So if you see anyone, just imagine Natasha, a senator elected.
Mr. Samuel, it seems you are taking a position already. The court hasn't educated on the matter, so we don't know who is right or who is wrong.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you look at Natasha, for instance, she had laid an allegation. It's an allegation.
Right.
Now, ideal thing for you to do as a Senate is actually to investigate that allegation. And then based on the outcome of that allegation, you make informed decisions. But if you take a position and then you suspend her, what message are you sending across to those victims that are in similar situation that wants to actually maybe walk up to the police to lay an allegation?
I'm sorry to butt in. Samuel, the Senate has repeatedly said, in the words of the Senate, by the way, that she wasn't suspended because she made allegation, that she was suspended because she has failed to learn the House rules and she has run foul of the House rules severally, and she doesn't understand it, and she has committed, offenses against the House rules. That's why she was suspended, not because of the sexual allegation. Sexual advances.
I mean, it's the same thing by saying. But again, we all know, I mean, it's not, I mean, we are not born yesterday. We all know what the Senate is doing is just pulling up numbers together and pulling up things together to defend their very, very logical stand. What House rule was actually being flaunted. And if you set up House rules, does that mean because of that House rule, you will now deny over how much is the population of people she represents? Over 2-point-something million people, at least over that, or let's say 1 million. Let me just put that, about 1 million people, you now deny them representative in the Senate. That's what the court have said. The court have said, no, that this is too excessive. It's not a 2-month suspension. It's not a, I mean, you are shorting a constituency, almost one-third of the people of Kogi State away from the Senate, from representation. That's what you have done. And it happened about the same time, right? In Yoruba, they say, Ajekeleni, Omokulano. Then you say, oh, it's not the Ajay that killed him. Of course, people can connect the dots. It happened about the same time.
You might want to interpret that for non-Yoruba speakers.
Yeah, what you're saying in essence is that, oh, the witch actually said, oh, he cried today that this child is going to die, then the child dies. And then the witch say, well, I'm not the one that killed him. Of course, you look at the witch and connect the dots, that you are most likely responsible.
All right.
Right? That's exactly what has happened. So it's not about pushing things around. I think I'm far more concerned about the fact that even when the court, you have gone to the court, you've done what you want to do, you've gone to the court have said, yes, this is, then you're now still committing the resources of the state. Remember, you're paying more for fuel, you're paying more for electricity because we are looking to save funds to improve our life. Then you are taking out of that money and then you are using it to pay big lawyers to go and continue to drag this issue in court. It doesn't make sense. That means you have ulterior motive.
All right, Mr. Atiku, talking about paying big lawyers, let's look at the technicalities in this case. Interestingly, the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, he is a senior advocate of Nigeria, leading his legal team. And at this time, they are exploiting the technicalities of the ruling. And like you know, they say the law is an ass. So the law is the law. It is what it is. It's your ability to manipulate it to your own favor. That's it what really matters. So according to Akpabio's legal team, they are saying, number one, the court lacks jurisdiction to interfere, citing Section 251 of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. That's one point they raise. Number two, they are claiming that Natasha did not fully explore internal procedures to resolve her case before going to the court. And as Nigerians, we know that the system might actually be rigged against Natasha ab initio. So Akpabio and his team, they are simply using technicalities to counter this, saying the court lacks jurisdiction, it's out of their purview, saying in this case, it's out of judicial purview, so the court shouldn't even bother at all in the first place. Also blaming Natasha for not fully exploring internal procedures, which, like I said, might have been rigged against her. So what can be done in this case? How about the moral aspect of it? And apart from that, one more thing his legal team said was that even the suit filed by Natasha herself does not include the prayer for her to be recalled. So these are highly technical points raised by Akpabio, saying the court can't even grant a ruling on a prayer that was not even sought in the first place. So how do we, juxtapose all this? We have to look at the technicalities because the law is the law, and if they are actually right, the law will have to go that way. Then how do we juxtapose that with the moral aspect as people, as Nigerians?
I think, yeah, again, I'm not a lawyer. I will say I'm not a lawyer, but of course I can delve deep into technical issues itself and use that as a shield to actually take me away from problems or even bury people in problems. We need to understand the principle itself here. The reason, if you look at the house rule, the reasons why those rules are set up is to ensure that there's no serious disorderly conduct that prevents the chamber itself from functioning. That's the first reason. The second issue why someone may be suspended is when there are ethical or corruption allegations, to temporarily remove the person to ensure that investigations are protected and the institution goes through due process. The third one is when you abuse your privilege and then you begin to leak information. The fourth principle is when you ignore lawful summons. As a senator, you refuse to disclose as you are required by the law. And then fifth is about when they come to safety concerns. Those are the 5 broad principles, which is where we drew the house rules from. If you break it down around those technical issues, that is the spirit that encompasses the house rule. And that is it. That's where we draw our rules from, house rules from. Now, the question now is that you've said, what you've said, yeah, maybe there are technical issues in there, but the court itself had put, remember, the court itself had put the people of Kogi's representation at the heart of his decision making. That you cannot, if these 5 principles are not met, you cannot deny. We have to remember it's not Natasha here. I know Natasha is just a representative. You're looking at Natasha as a person. But you look at the people that she's representing. So you're denying over 1 million people representation where you have not clearly showed to people how Natasha's action had constituted serious disorderly conduct. It had led to ethical or corruption allegation. It had led to abuse of privilege and security breach that had put every other person under risk. It had led to the contempt of the chamber itself, when lawful summons, and then your refusal to disclose rules, to disclose certain information, and then that led to safety concern. If those principles are not met, then the basis for you to have denied those people, just imagine me voting for an elected, I'm electing a senator to go and sit in there, and the person is wanged off, meaning that I cannot go and complain about the challenges I'm having to the senator. So who do I complain to? Am I going to jump out of my constituency, go and talk to another senator to help me advance my cause? So that should be at the heart of it. So where I'm going is that we cannot deny people representation. It's not possible. They need to be represented in the Senate. Even if even in the U.S., for instance, if a senator commits an offense, of course, there are ways you could do that. You can go on the floor of the Senate, and then you condemn the person. And then it stays in the record of the person forever that this person have been condemned, or when they use the word, is it controlled, by the Senate. It's done in the U.S. You cannot just walk the person out of the chamber and throw the person away for 6 months, for 1 year without representation, and then you carry on the business of the house. That should be at the heart of this discussion. So why there are truths, there are technical issues, we should remember the spirit of democracy is representation. So if, for instance, peradventure, a Senate president tomorrow wakes up, I mean, we've seen it happen across states, and then he brings his friends together, and then because of that, they suspend the whole opposition, and then they create a law. So we say that, oh, it's correct. What they have done is correct. They can do that. Then the whole concept of democracy is lost. We need to look at the implication of what we are doing in the larger scheme of things. And we've seen it play out in some states.
Sorry, Mr.
Where 5 senators.
Mr. Atiku, sorry to butt in here. Like you said, that what if tomorrow the Senate decides to suspend the entire legislation, the entire opposition, rather? Now, at this point, don't you think we need to look into the Constitution itself? Because if their argument is based on their powers as derived from the Constitution, it means our Constitution is the problem. There's a fault in the Constitution. Because like I said, this is the law. He can actually win this case on technical grounds.
So we wait and see. That's why the court have said, right? The court, I mean, the present ruling now has said that you can't do that. That's where we are. Now, the question I'm having is that whether the Senate can go and appeal that. They've gone to appeal that using our resources. I'm far more interested. I'm not saying that they should not appeal. If Akpabio wants to appeal, he should use it.
He has appealed already. That's the point. He has appealed already.
My point is that he should use his own personal resources. He should not use the tax that was collected from the working poor, the have-nots, that are struggling, people that cannot feed their family, people that are struggling. He should not use that resources. He should use his own personal money to actually go and appeal that case. That's my point. You can appeal, fine. No, you're right. You have every right to go and appeal. Yes, you can appeal, but please don't use the resources of the state. Don't bring the Nigerian Senate as an institution into it. As Akpabio, me as a senator, Senator Akpabio, in my individual capacity, I'm appealing this case. Yeah, you can go and do that, but please don't bring the Nigerian Senate. Don't bring the institution itself. So what we are saying in essence is that the institution of the Senate, that's Nigeria, is appealing against a judgment that is intended to protect the representation of the people of Kogi State. That's the principle in which I hold here. And that is wrong.
Mr. Atiku, I think at this point, it is actually the Senate who is appealing, is his legal team who is appealing. That's the situation. I do not think it is the Senate. I think it's the Senate President himself, talking about Senator Godswill Akpabio. He's the one appealing this ruling.
Oh, okay.
Because his legal team are the ones involved in this.
If he's the one appealing the case, using his own personal resources, then that's okay.
Saying the judge has no right to have nullified his instructions.
So the question is that, is it okay for a senator from Akwa Ibom to decide to go to a court and tell people that is he okay? I mean, I'm very, very dissatisfied that the court is saying that, oh, you cannot deny the people of Kogi State representation in the Senate. Itself, there's a question around whether the Senate President himself even have local standing
to do that. All right. Now, so among the release being sought by the Senate President is that he is urging the appellate court to allow the appeal and set aside the judgment of the Federal Appeal Court, strike out the duplicated reliefs contained in Akpoti-Uduaghan's multiple applications, dismiss her suit for lack of jurisdiction, and reject what he termed the trial court's advisory opinions, in parentheses now, to the Senate, especially those relating to amending his rules or recalling a suspended member. And the former Akwa Ibom State Governor is also seeking the court to invoke Section 15 of the Court of Appeal Act to resolve his preliminary objection and dismiss the entire case. Because, you know, some words were used, the advisory opinion, because according to him, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan wasn't praying the court to reinstate her, according to them. So if the court has gone ahead to do that, maybe it will be in an advisory position, and, you know, the Senate President want all of those dismissed, and, you know, for the appeal court to do his bidding through his relief. Now, if you can take it back, there are many persons who believe Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, you know, we can't say rightly if she's right or she's wrong, she's lying, she's not lying. We'll leave that to the court because the case is in court already. But to say that maybe she didn't pick a battle, you know, very well, that possibly she was naive and nervous and all of those things, because for whatever our case was and whatever evidence or evidences were of fact and all of those things, that she should know she's speaking on the number 3 person in this nation and his group of friends and co-senators, you know, when she went full blast on the national TV to make these allegations and all of those things, that she should know what is coming at her and she should have a rock solid evidence and case, watertight, for she to prove her case. Now, so far, we have not seen evidence and all of those things beyond what she said on that program that day. And in fact, she happens not to have, at least publicly, no friends as far as this case is concerned. Even our women senators, 2 of them have spoken and said maybe she didn't handle the case well. Would you say maybe she was nervous, I mean, naive in the handling of this case ab initio?
I mean, everybody make their decision based on the way they think through things. That's the way I will put it. Let's remember, it's not the first senator that was suspended and the court said, oh, you have to reinstate them. Agege, the former Senate president, I mean, the former deputy Senate president was suspended just to reinforce that, and then reinstated. Remember, he committed even a more grievous offense, stealing the maize of the National Assembly. Well, it was reinstated by the same courts. Aliu Dome was also suspended. Remember, the court actually still did the same thing and said you cannot do it for a long base case, right? So let's put it side by side. Agege stealing the Senate, I mean the maize of the Senate. Natasha actually laying allegation. I mean, if you look at the Nigerian Senate, you don't have too many women that you could talk to. Even in society.
Only 4 of them.
Only 4 of them. Even in society, I'll call it the normative process is that when a woman cheats, right, she's wrong, but of course there's a man involved, they look away, right? I don't want to go deep into those normative social constructs in Nigeria. So it takes a whole lot of weight, right? It takes a whole lot of pain for a woman to actually come out to say this has happened. And it's not uncommon for the biggest opposition to her taking that decision to also be women. Because most of the people that will always push those normative issues are also women itself. So that's, I'll call it, that's one of the biggest social normative issues that we have in our country that we need to address. And I'm happy that she has stepped up, right, to actually accuse someone directly, giving other people potential hope to do that, right? The problem is that what happens next? Agege was suspended, he went to court, the court said you cannot suspend him for this long, and he was reinstated. The Senate president then did not appeal, right?
Right, exactly.
Aliu Dome was suspended also by the Senate. He went to court. The court said, oh no, you can't suspend him for this long, and he was reinstated, right? Now, when it became Natasha's chance, you have a Senate president. It shows clearly that there's something fundamentally wrong here. Let's be sincere with ourselves.
All right, Mr. Atiku, like you said, there's something fundamentally wrong here. Now, let's look at it from this angle, away from the legal technicalities. Now, hypothetically speaking, let's say Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan was actually right with her allegations. Now she's trying to, get justice. Her colleagues in the Senate are accusing her that she has not fully explored, that the Senate president is saying Natasha has not fully explored the internal processes. Do you think, Mr. Jai, Mr. Atiku rather, do you really think that given the situation right here on our hands, the allegations, sexual harassment and all that, do you think Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan actually had any chance to have gotten justice from that committee in the Senate? Because it looks as if it has become a personal vendetta. You said it. You said the Senate president and his friends So if truly some people in the Senate have decided to gang up against her, against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, do you think she could have gotten any justice from that same Senate? Because that's their own argument now, that it's an internal case. She should have fully explored internal procedures before going to court. Do you think sincerely that she could have gotten justice from that same Senate?
I mean, it's very highly unlikely, because of when you see the aftermath of the actions of the Senate, it shows clearly that she wouldn't have to. I mean, she stands zero chance of doing that. And it's not just peculiar to that. If you take historical issues that had been laid around sexual allegations, I remember a senator in Nigeria slapping someone in a sex toy. I mean, in a sex toy shop. What happened? Right? We remember a senator, right, that is now screaming, is part of the coalition, accuse the wife, right, the wife of the president, a powerful man. She used some very, very vague word against her. What happened to him? I mean, let's remember, I mean, the wife of the president is actually very powerful.
Yeah.
So the question is that what happened to him after using that word itself? So we are talking about a cliche of men, right, that sees themselves as friends no matter what happens, and they will defend themselves. So the only option she has, I mean, if you're working in an organization and you know the internal process is rigged against you from the point go, will you still go into that internal process? And then they now can do something, and then they now make a decision to tell you what you said is wrong. So if you come to the public, they will now tell you, after our internal process, we discovered that you are wrong. You are now you are just a sore loser. I mean, we need to weigh this thing. She's a senator. She knows the people she knows her colleague very well, even more than we can ever know. But if you look at antecedent histories of incidents that have been brought I mean, even from very powerful people, nothing happened to them. Right? They walk away. There was one that even slapped, what do you call it, that was slapping someone. Nothing happened. So that's a clear case of assault. Nothing happened to them. They walk away free, right? So the laws are rigged, whether we like it against women. It's not just peculiar to the Senate, even in our society. We know a lot of, in universities, a lot of ladies accuse lecturers.
No, so sorry, did you say the laws are rigged against women?
Yeah, the way the laws are implemented.
Do you think it's just women or just everybody, ordinary Nigerians, not just women? So I don't want us to be gender sensitive here.
The laws are, whether we like it or not, your status, your societal status, one way or the other, affects how you relate to the law. But within that construct itself, women are even more vulnerable. Within that construct, if you don't have enough money, you are even more vulnerable. So we have different layers of vulnerability, but within this context that we are discussing now, of course, if we walk, I can talk about other things also, right? We could pick up a child also and say that the law is rigged against that child. But within this construct that we are discussing now, the laws and the implementation of those laws are rigged against women in our office spaces, in the Senate, in the House of Representatives. In fact, if you hear the hot chances that come out of some people, I mean, I've been in public, I've sat around the corridors of people in government. If you see some people, in fact, if you go to some meetings, right? Yeah. I mean, just to put it in context, if you go to some states in this country, when men are talking in a meeting, in a round table meeting, the women sit at the back. And I'm not joking.
All right.
I can mention many meetings I've attended. I said, what is this?
Yeah.
So it's there.
All right, and it's a developing situation, and of course we keep tabs with it, and we hope and trust the court will do the needful, irrespective of whose ox is God. And Nigerians are watching. We are watching as well. Impact evaluator, policy analyst, and of course public affairs analyst Samuel Atiko, all the way from the UK. Thank you for your time and your take today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yes.
It's good to see you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Great being on the program. Thank you so much.
We should go.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure having you on the program. And of course, to you, our distinguished viewers, thank you so much for joining us once again. Don't forget, you can always check out this conversation on our social media handles at Western Spring Television. Join us again tomorrow for a fresh edition of Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. Emeka Daniel is my name. Do have a wonderful day. Good morning.
And of course, in whatever you do, please stay alive. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. God bless you.